be safe as far as possible. The only real safety is at Krishna's lotus feet. But as long as we are in this world, we should take some precautions for physical safety, as we will learn about in this talk. One well-known verse from the Bhagavatam, Canto 10, is quoted in Srila Prabhupada's purport to Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, text 51, and it goes as follows. Samashritaye padapallava plavang mahat padang punya yasho murarehe bhavam buddhir vatsa padang parang padam yad vipadam natesham. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation, and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of mukti, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's hoofprint. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger at every step of life. And we commonly hear quoted from this verse the last line, Padam padam yad vipadam nate sham, which means that at every step there is danger, but it's not there in the spiritual world. So the point that's emphasized by quoting this, Padam padam yad vipadam, that in this material world there is danger at every step of life. For devotees or aspiring devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they see danger in a different way to the way that materialistic people do. In fact, everyone's concept of danger is influenced by their outlook on life. Just to give an example, once I was in a hospital in Bangalore. I was waiting there, and for some reason there was just me and one young Muslim boy waiting in that area. And I thought I'll give him a sweet. I had some sweet prasad, little ladus, which I'd brought to give the doctors. So I got one out, and I wanted to give it to him, and a look of horror came on his face. No doubt, because he didn't take it. No doubt because he had been trained that to take food from what he considered to be a Hindu. To take food from a Hindu, it's Satan, Shaitan is there, and it'll be very, very bad for you. So just as pious Hindus are very happy to have the opportunity to take the prasad of the Supreme Lord, Muslims who are trained in that way think that it's very dangerous for them. But in general, the concept of danger, in terms of physical danger, it's common to all humans. For instance, the danger of fire, the danger of falling from a high place in contemporary society, the danger of electric shocks, and there are all kinds of danger. Giving birth is dangerous. It used to be a lot more dangerous until the advent of modern medical science. It's very dangerous to take birth in this material world from the Bhagavad Gita perspective, because if we misuse our life, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble in so many future lives. It's also a great opportunity but that's a different perspective. Devotees see as dangerous all kinds of things which other people can hardly imagine as being dangerous. Asat Sangha Tyag E Vaishnavacha, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was asked, what is the behavior by which we can know who is a Vaishnava? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Asat Sangha Tyag E Vaishnavacha. A Vaishnava gives up bad association. So what for other people might be just something normal or nice. Going to a party with lots of people milling around, telling some jokes, having a good time, drinking a little or a lot. A devotee wouldn't consider participating in that. For him, it's very dangerous because it will take his attention away from Krishna. We find in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes about this spiritual danger, or the danger, actually spiritual danger. What does that mean? Spiritual life means there's no danger, but the danger to the progress in spiritual life. Let's put it very precisely. Srila Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Devotion, Sri Rupa Goswami advises that devotees who have already tasted the nectar of devotion be very careful to protect devotional service from dry speculators, formal ritualistic elevationists, and impersonal salvationists. Devotees should protect their valuable jewel of spiritual love from the clutches of thieves and burglars. Yeah, that's another very common kind of danger, isn't it? That thieves and burglars. Thieves were just walking down the street and we get to our destination or we go to a shop, we pull out our wallet and it's not there. I used to see distributing books one summer in Oxford Street in London. The Scandinavian people, especially, who were very innocent in the sense they couldn't imagine such a thing, would walk around with their wallets in their back pocket, perfect for pickpockets, who had a wonderful time. And we'd find in the waste paper bins empty wallets, so many. Scandinavian people used to be so crime-free, not now. Anyway, thieves and then burglars, we have to put, we find here in India and in Bangladesh, the windows, it's not just, well, glass is not very common, but there's glass in windows is not very common, especially in the villages, but there are bars on the window or some kind of lattice work to stop people breaking the window and coming through it. Thieves. And, there are all kinds of things. It's a common trick of housebreakers in India is to go through the air conditioning unit, to remove the air conditioning unit and go in. It's big enough for someone, if they're not too fat, to squeeze through. Anyway, the point is that thieves and burglars, that's another kind of danger. Not much in the villages in India, especially if they're very small villages, because everyone knows everyone else, and generally people are not much interested in so much material acquisition anyway. They're more or less content with what they have. That's changing. And even drug use in the village is coming, so the children, the teenage children may steal from their parents because they want to buy drugs. In this passage, which we read from Nectar of Devotion, we can see that Rupa Goswami, he's not mentioning in this case about complete hedonists and sense gratifiers, but dry speculators, which means like philosophers, formal ritualistic elevationists, that means pious people who perform karma kanda activities to want to go to the heavenly planets, and impersonal salvationists. So he's warning about people who, they're not gross sense gratifiers, but they are religionists or philosophers, but Rupa Goswami says, be careful, they'll take away your devotion. So there's spiritual danger, apart from material danger, which devotees have to be careful about. There is spiritual danger. So we have more danger than the materialists have, but in one way we don't take the material danger so seriously, because we know that anyway these bodies are temporary. It is traumatic for people who think they are the body to suffer and survive a terrible accident, which leaves them crippled or lacking a limb. But there's so many such accidents all the time. No one wakes up in the morning and thinks that today I'll be in a terrible accident. Accident means you just don't expect it. But the emergency wards of hospitals are full daily. There's so many terrible accidents daily. Generally, when we think of accidents, we tend to think of road accidents, which can be very messy, very, very messy. When the car just gets crushed and the pieces of metal go deep into the body, it can be very, very messy. But there are many, many accidents at home also. People just, the woman is ironing the shirt for the boy to go to school, and all of a sudden electric shock, she's dead. Or electric geysers in bathrooms. In India, it's very common now. The season is there for using that. Very dangerous, because electricity with water, electrocution, and then you're finished. I mean, you're dead. The emergency wards of hospitals, always busy and always horrible scenes with the... why am I particularly talking on this? I want to give some warning. Recently, in Bangalore, I was informed, a devotee's factory burned down, and there was tremendous loss, not only of property, but also of life. 2 of his workers died. And maybe, we may think, oh, in big cities there'll be more accidents, but in the country also, snake bites are very common. Even for someone who's trained in, or trained means, even without formal training, they spend their whole life working with animals, then you never know. It can happen that a bull who's very peaceful, or a cow, especially a cow in the cow in the menses, if they don't get fulfilled, they can become very stroppy, very dangerous actually. So it's quite common that in Salem in Tamil Nadu, it was maybe 2 years ago, one of our devotees, he'd just come to serve, come from his village to serve full-time, young man, married man. And he was engaged in the Goshala with the cows, which is actually not exactly run by the temple. But many of our devotees are engaged in that. Someone else owns it, but many of the devotees, they're engaged in service there. So he's doing that, and he was used to dealing with cows, but the cows he was used to dealing with were used to him. So he just took the rope for the cow and walked in front, but the cow was scared of him and gave him from behind got with the horns, and he's crippled. He can move only with very great difficulty now, and he's going to be like that all his life. Yeah, specifically I'm taking this up because recently in Salem, in Tamil Nadu, in our temple, where there's construction going on, and construction is very dangerous. Temple is being constructed, new ashram is being constructed, guest house, so many things. There were 2 accidents which would not have happened if devotees had followed basic safety procedures. One was actually a devotee in his own property, was close to the temple, he's building his own house, and he was using a power cutter, very heavy thing, as you need a lot of strength to hold that. He didn't follow the basic safety procedures, and as a result he got a serious injury in his leg. It could have been much worse. By Krishna's grace, he got away fairly clear, and he was bedridden for about 2 months. But it could have been much worse. In another case, a devotee who's actually a trained electrician got serious electric shock. He should have known, everyone should have known, it was an obvious thing. There was an open electric wire which had been open for quite some time. Not only that, but it was the rainy season, so it was wet most of the time. So he happened to be the one who touched it. It was going to be someone, because if you leave an open electric wire in the place where people go back and forth, sooner or later someone's going to touch it accidentally. And then he got a serious shock, and his one arm is out of action. And fortunately, one of our devotees there, one of our brahmacharis, spent several years as a doctor. He's a doctor by profession, but after about 10 years working as a doctor, he came and joined full-time. And he could understand what he immediately brought to the hospital, gave the immediate first aid, brought to the hospital. Otherwise, he could have lost the use of his hand for life. He might have needed amputation even. But he's in the process of recovery. In both cases, and in many cases with accidents, they happen due to neglect of basic safety procedures. Sometimes I've heard it, devotees say they don't want to put on the seatbelt. They say, oh, we'll chant the name of Nrsimhadev, we'll chant the Nrsimha prayers, as if Nrsimha is obliged to protect you if you don't follow the basic procedure. In this regard, there is a story told of, I heard a Mayavadi version, that a disciple in the ashram heard from his guru that we're all Atma, we're all the same, we're all indestructible, Atma. So everyone is Atma, and Atma can come to no harm. So he was walking in the street in the bazaar, and an elephant out of control was running. Even he had his mahout with him, but he was running wild. But the disciple thought, well, I'm Atma, he's Atma, so I can't come to any harm. So he didn't get out of the way, and the elephant threw him to one side, and he got injured, but he was well enough that he could get back to his ashram. And he asked his guru, what happened? He said, I'm Atma, I can't come to any harm. So how come I got so badly injured by the elephant? And the guru told him, didn't you hear the Atma, the Mahout Atma, calling out to you to get out of the way? I discussed this topic of devotee safety recently with some of my leading disciples who are leading up projects, because we don't want devotees to die, become injured. We don't want anyone to die or become injured, and that's why we're preaching Krishna consciousness, so we can get eternally free from all of these things. But even though we know we're not the body, we don't want to invite trouble. We should take care to look after the body. We take so much care to look after the body. We arrange, so much effort goes into arranging. We're talking about building an ashram. What is that? That's an arrangement for, basically it's an arrangement for, the brahmachari ashram is an arrangement for eating, sleeping, and defense from the elements. So much into, every day we bring raw ingredients, cook, wash the body, bathe the body, brush the teeth, clean the toilets, and so much endeavor goes to looking after the body. And then we can be so careless in a situation which we know is dangerous. And actually, it's always dangerous. Just a few days ago here in Vellore in Tamil Nadu, I saw a tin sheet spread out in the pathway on some bricks. It was being used for mixing cement, but it had been left there by the workers at night with the idea that, well, tomorrow we'll need it again. But in the meantime, it's in a dark place on the pathway, and anyone in the night can just walk into it and seriously cut their foot. But who thought about that? Well, I saw it and I thought about it, and I said to remove it from here. It's very dangerous. So you have to be thoughtful also, because there are all kinds of things which can go wrong. Many of the things we can't imagine, but many of the things we can imagine also. So we should be conscious for our own bodies and the bodies of others, and not make a situation in which accidents happen, or we shouldn't invite trouble. I asked by email some of the leaders of ISKCON in India, are there any safety regulations, general guidelines given for temples and projects under ISKCON in India? Just like there are guidelines or rules, I believe it is, for temples in India, that all the members of the temple should have health insurance. There are certain rules which are there for the temple managers, for the benefit of the devotees and for the benefit of the movement also. It's considered, if you have health insurance, that's a good idea, rather than being stuck with a bill for 8 lakhs or something for some treatment. If you have health insurance, of course, we don't want to utilize that health insurance for accidents if we can avoid them. And you might not get the insurance money given to you if you don't follow the basic safety measures. So anyway, I asked, and I got the reply that although in certain temples they are aware of this, particularly I was informed at ISKCON Chowpatty, which anyone who's been there seeing, there's a lot of wood in that building, and they have a lot of fire extinguishers throughout the building. So that's a good measure. ISKCON, at this phase of ISKCON in India, it's a phase that's been going on for quite some time now. Our movement is very much concerned with construction of temples, and it's going on. Construction of temples means along with the temples there'll be ashrams and guest houses and other facilities. Construction is always very dangerous, and the government of India and maybe the state authorities also separately have safety rules and guidelines. But from what I see, in many cases, they're not followed. To give an example, in ISKCON Salem, I saw devotees and workers, this was last year, going on the construction site without safety helmets, without safety boots. And even they were engaged in stone cutting. Well, that was the workers, the hired workers. And they don't even use a face mask because there's so much dust comes out. And what to speak, they should be using goggles, but they don't do it, even though the government rule is there. And if someone gets in an accident, apart from, we don't want them to be hurt, but apart from that, the employer, which means in this case ISKCON, may be subject to having to pay lots of money in compensation, and loss of reputation. But after a few times, I managed to get the devotees to wear their safety helmets on site. But they weren't very enthusiastic to do so because it's very hot. They're very hot, and already the sun is hot. I couldn't get them to wear the safety boots because they say it's just too hot and we just can't wear them. And as far as the workers are concerned, they're not concerned. They're not interested. They're not going to do it. You can tell them 1,000 times, they're just not going to do it. You may say, well, change the workers, but none of them are going to do it. That seems to be the culture in India. You don't see construction workers anywhere wearing these things. Maybe in the bigger cities, gradually in India, things are tightening up in all spheres of life. But it's almost like a culture. It's just like people, they don't like to wear seat belts. They have what is it? It's a kind of feeling, it's kind of Maya, that nothing can go wrong with me. I'm like God. I'm God, so nothing can go wrong. Is that the reason why people, they don't like to follow basic safety measures? They think nothing can go wrong with me. It's Maya, because padam padam, yadvipadam. At every step there is danger. It doesn't mean at every step you get danger, but kabhi bhi kuch bhi ho sakta hai. At any time, anything untoward can happen. And it does happen, just like people are in accidents. It can just be a moment's inattention. So many road accidents are caused by people, their attention is diverted by they're talking on the cell phone while they're driving. And it may be just 1 second. It may be they have a TV which they're watching while they're driving, and you might think when you're on the highway and it's just boring driving along and there's not much danger because it's all one-way traffic and everyone is, but a moment's inattention. You can be just driving and then you look at something. That's why even advertisements on the side of the road, it's not a very good idea, actually. They're trying to attract your attention, but if the driver's attention may be 1 second away, boom, finished. You don't know. Then some buffalo runs in the road. I'm talking from 1970s. One of our devotees was driving this Sankirtan vehicle, and a buffalo comes in the road, and buffalo got killed, and then all kinds of things like that. Chickens run in the road, goats run in the road, children run in the road, adults run in the road. You just don't know when it's going to happen. In Bangladesh, this was 1980, it must have been early 1980s. Our devotees were driving, and no, actually it was a hired driver, and 2 kids just ran out in the road and they got killed. Dangerous world. Padam padam yad vipadam. We want to go to the spiritual world, but meanwhile, we're here. So, particularly when there's construction projects, the safety measures, safety procedures should be clearly outlined. Take help from an expert if necessary. You have to take help from experts anyway to build a building. So you can ask them about safety measures also. What should we do? There's so many things. If you're going on the site at night, then, or after dark, you have to have sufficient lighting. Scaffolding has to be properly secured. Apart from that, there's safety from thieves, who may include the hired workers or thieves. If they can steal something, they will. All tools and all kinds of things. Even like steel rods. If you don't have if you have steel rods out in the open, you may think it's such a big thing, no one can steal it. They can steal it. No, it's not like a tool that you can just hide away and take, but the thieves, they know their job very well. So we have to be careful in so many ways. But the safety procedures should be outlined. They should be written down. Devotees and the workers on the site should be educated in this regard. And one thing is that even here in India at least, it seems to be like a culture of not bothering about danger. I always wondered why the women, not just women and men, they often pass stool on the side of the road when there are fields on the side. But if there's fields with bushes and this and that, there's danger from snakes. So if you come in the road, there's less danger. So it's not that they're completely oblivious to danger, but like that. In the construction, they'll come to work drunk, and they're dealing with dangerous tools and equipment and big heavy rocks. I asked one of my disciples who used to work in Kuwait, and the only thing going in Kuwait, economically or practically in any other way, is the oil extraction. So I asked him, and he said that before anyone's employed in any capacity in the oil field, even if they're not directly involved in the extraction of oil, even if they're a clerk in the office, well, the clerk in the office may not be directly on the oil field, but anyway, they're administrative staff, apart from engineers and workers. But for everyone, before they even get allowed on the site, they have training in safety, training sessions, and a compulsory daily briefing at the beginning of each shift. Because just like now, I'm giving this talk, and devotees might think, oh, that's interesting, and then they'll forget it the next moment. But every day, just like you're drilling the earth for oil, you have to drill it into, this is in the oil fields, because it's extremely dangerous, and any kind of fire should be kept a long, long way away. But at each shift, there is a briefing, and it's watched. There are safety officers on every site. As long as if it's a 24-hour working, they'll have safety officers, maybe 3 shifts. Safety, their only job is to look out for safety, and they will see who is doing well, they're following all the procedures, and they'll incentivize them by giving them monetary rewards. And those who don't, those who are lax in following the procedures, they'll be subject to more and more training until they fall in line. I don't know if we can do that, but in our centers, but at least safety measures should be considered in all centers. We don't want to lose the precious lives of our devotees. Okay, they may go back to Godhead, but they're being trained now for preaching, for service. They actually need time to become more advanced in Krishna consciousness. So the safety measures should be drawn up, printed, and put out in boards in the ashram, in the workers' accommodation, on the construction site. And just like in the Kuwait oil fields, there's a compulsory daily briefing, then the workers and everyone who's on the site, they should repeat them daily, the procedures, just like in many temples, they recite the 10 offenses against the holy name daily, to try to create some consciousness of this. And then in Salem, fortunately, as I say, we have a doctor as a brahmachari in the ashram, and in many of our centers in India we have, but some first aid training. If there's no doctor, of course even the doctor may not be present. First aid training, even there may be a doctor, but there should be life-saving drugs, which for common things, just like if you're in the village, if you're in a village center, it's good to know. You can learn from the local people if they still know the remedial measures, herbal measures for snake bite, for instance. It's good to know these things. It was commonly taught in the Western world, basic safety measures, oral resuscitation by giving the kiss of life, recognizing if someone has a stroke, or the protocol for recognizing if someone has a stroke, and then if they have you may not even know, but if you do know, what to ask someone, if someone suddenly collapses, and then they get up and say, no, I'm okay, ask them. Smile. If they can't smile, take them to the hospital. It means they had a stroke. So like this. I'm just saying this to try to make some awareness, considering that it should be a wake-up call when there are accidents. Is it a warning from Krishna? Yes, it's a warning from Krishna that things can go wrong and they will go wrong, and we shouldn't think that, well, I'm a devotee, so I'm free from all this. Krishna will protect. Rakhe Krishna Mareke, Mare Krishna Rakeke. But we are in the material world, and we have to navigate our way through it, and we have to live according to the rules of it. Yeah, that is one consideration. Rakhe Krishna Mareke, that if Krishna protects, who can kill us? But then Krishna protects, yes, it's just like we may say, oh, looks like it's going to rain. Okay, Krishna will protect us, but it's unlikely that Krishna is going to stop the rain just because we go out in it. Krishna protects by giving us the intelligence to note that it's going to rain, and then we bring umbrella. We bring an umbrella. That's how Krishna also helps us, by giving us intelligence. The same example with the disciple and the elephant. From the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, Nrsimhadev, Prahlad Maharaj prays to Nrsimhadev. Balasya neha sharanang pitarau nrsimha nartasya chagatam udanvanti majjato now taptasya tat pratividhir yaihanja sheshtas tavad vibhotanu britang tavopekshitanam Prahlad prays to Lord Nrsimhadev, my Lord Nrsimhadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for you cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient, and a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. So yeah, ultimately, we have to die. But as long as we have this body, we should try to protect it so that we can use it in Krishna's service. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. Well, the body itself is impermanent, but as long as the body is there, we have to utilize it for Krishna's service. So please, don't be neglectful, don't be negligent, especially those who are managing temple projects and other projects in Krishna's service. Devotees living at home with their families, so many dangers in the home. We're not aware, but so many accidents happen at home. Cooking means knives, fire, so many things can go wrong. So please just remember that responsibility covers this area also. And just a request, because I see devotees are often negligent, that take care for the devotees' physical safety as well as their devotional safety. Hare Krishna. Despite all precautions, things will go wrong. But still, it's foolish not to take precautions and increase the chances of accidents. That's the bottom line. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah dante nithaya chunakang padayo nipatya kridva chakaku shatametadam bravimi hey sadhava sakala eva vihaya durat goranga chandra charane kurujana raga parivadatu jano yata tata va nanumukarona vayang vicharayama hari rasa madhira madhati mata bhuvi vilutama nartama nirvishama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama